Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Cabinet meeting. Item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. I've got apologies from Councillors Davis and Lyon.
Thank you very much. Item 2, declarations of interest. Should be noted with an interest in better homes for all. And 2 of the Cabinet members, there's 3 of us declaring interest in that. So we'll leave when that report's coming up and Lee will take the chair. Item 3, minutes of the meeting held at the Cabinet on the 14th of February. They moved? Seconded? All in favour? Over to are they the officers here for the item 4? Item 4 then, high need review and strategic plan for special education needs. Councillor Shirley Rents.
The report you have before you today is our high needs review and strategic plan for special education needs and disability. All local authorities have a statutory duty to ensure there's a school place available for every child, and the Children and Families Act 2014 requires us to keep the provision for children and young people with special educational needs under review, and to work with parents, young people and providers to do this. We've recently carried out a review of our provision for school-aged children with special educational needs, and this report outlines the key findings and our way forward to meet the ever-increasing demand for this specialist provision. Demand for specialist places in Telford and Wrekin is high, with 35% of children placed in maintained special schools compared to the national average of only 26%. This is due to several factors. Telford and Wrekin is a victim of its own success with an excellent reputation for its specialist provision. Therefore, we have a very high demand with families moving into our area to access this provision. Families are aware that the special educational needs and disabilities are very quickly identified and met in our borough. The needs of children has also changed. There is a growth in the number of children with autistic spectrum condition and social, emotional, mental health needs, together with an increase of children with Key Stage 2 with complex needs. The increase of statutory special education needs and disability special provision up to the age of 25 without the match funding to go with it has significantly increased the burden in terms of funding. This is not just an issue for our local authority, but there is a national special needs disability funding crisis across the country. The high needs funding from the Department of Education has also not kept pace with the growth of numbers. Therefore, there is a very limited resource to develop further provision. Within Telford and Wrekin, we focused on building the resilience and capacity within our mainstream schools, which will meet the increasing capacity of needs. We've consulted with all our schools and they've responded very positively to our proposals. In 2017, special provision capital funding was made available for local authorities to invest in improvements for facilities for pupils with high needs, including those with educational health and care plans. Our funding is over 3 years, and whilst it's very welcome, it must be recognised that there is a crisis with pressures on high needs funding nationally. Within the report, you will note that we've already developed a much clearer pathway to the educational health and care plan assessments, focusing on the graduated approach to supporting children's special needs with consistency and more flexible avenues to access funding for children with complex needs through a school-led inclusive schools forum, reducing reliance on the educational healthcare plans to access funding. We are developing an early years and school-based strategy which will meet the needs of children with autism, including partnership working with the Autism Educational Trust. We've agreed to make additional capacity available for the Horton Special School, and at the centre of this report are the principles which underpin the development of the specialist provision in Telford and Wrekin. Belief is everything, including developing a broader continuum provision in the local area, which will minimise further increases for special school placements and the use of out-of-county provision. Increase the partnership between mainstream and special schools, and maximising opportunity for inclusion. We want to educate our children as close to home as possible and provide greater choice for parents. This report seeks approval to develop a specialist resource-based provisions in mainstream schools for both primary and secondary children with cognitive learning difficulties, for social communication issues, including autistic spectrum conditions. We will develop specialist resource provision at designated site for primary children Key Stage 2 with special needs, together with a highly therapeutic provision within our specialist schools for children with the highest complexity of special educational needs and disability. There's keen interest from our schools, and we will initially focus on the development of the primary phase. It's critical that the development of the secondary provision follows to ensure a smooth transition of provision for children as they progress to Key Stage 3. 2 primary schools are to be identified to work with the special school and will operate a partnership model. The bases will open in autumn 2019, and the secondary resource provision is due to be open in the academic year 2019-20. As you will note from the report, this has been a very thorough review, and I would like to thank the officers, and in particular Simon, for his work in this very important area. Special educational needs and disability provision is vital. It is the cornerstone to success in our children's lives, and the specialist provision in Telford and Wrekin will continue to build on that success we've already achieved. I fully endorse that belief is everything, especially with the children in our borough, and I move the recommendations within this report.
Thank you, Shirley. There's a second to that recommendation. Thank you, Paul. So, say anything, Andrew?
Yes, very briefly. Referring to the agenda, the item on the agenda that's coming later about Horton School, I just wonder how that and the change of plans there will actually impact on this report here, and what account has been taken to that. Because I picked up certainly the future forecasts for special educational needs are one of an increasing nature, and at the moment there is a question over capacity on how we deal with that. So I would be interested to know how, and link the two together in many respects, as to where we're going in the future with this.
These are 2 separate standalone reports, and our decisions on the provision of our specialist education needs for the children will always stand alone regardless of the places where they are, and I'm sure you'll find the answers to your questions later in the agenda anyway to do with that item. But I don't know whether the officers...
I think I'd just like to say a point that Councillor Shirley Reynolds made, that we do have high numbers of children in our special schools. And what is unusual, and I do use that word in its broader sense, but it is quite unusual, we've got mainstream schools and we've got special schools, but we've got nothing in between that meets the needs of those children who for some of the time could participate in mainstream education but actually need some specialist support as well. So the first thing is, in order for us not to be putting more children than we need to into specialist schools, we need to develop the resource provision. And that will address some of the pressures that I think we've not been able to address in the past, because we've had mainstream schools and we've had special schools, and perhaps we've had some children in our special schools who actually could be educated in a mainstream schools in one of these resourced units. So I think that's the first thing to say. We do know that children are obviously living longer with more complex needs, and that's not just in Telford, that's nationally, and that's something, you know, we all have to address. And that means we have to upskill as much as we can, train and give our schools the confidence, the education, the skills, the autism training, for instance, so that they too can confidently sort of manage and meet the needs of those young people in our mainstream schools. So I think it works all the way through the system. We have taken recognition in this report. Its report came to Cabinet last January. We know that Horton School is under pressure for places, and the development of provision for Horton will be part of the future planning for the new college site.
Could I just come back on that? I mean, there is a question, there's a limitation on the capacity for the Horton School site to actually accommodate projected increases in special educational needs. And certainly what was proposed, if you'll forgive me just going on to the later report, at New College did address that to a greater extent on capacity.
Yeah.
And that will be the subject of further consideration. That is not off the agenda. That's the Horton provision is part of all of our future planning for special educational places.
Yeah.
Bill.
No, I welcome the thrust of the report, particularly that you're looking to try and accommodate people with special needs in mainstream education. As much as you want to encourage inclusivity as much as you can, really, and it's that I'm still concerned, not necessarily with Telford and Wrekin, but the national backdrop. And I know the government have finally recognised that we've been underfunded for a few years, but since 2010, spending on education up to the age of 16, in real terms, taking into account inflation and everything else, is now down 8% from where it was. And more concerning as well, just as concerning, is for those over 16, it's down 21%. And when schools are faced with these budgetary pressures, it's easy to overlook. I say easy, it's not the right word actually, but it's a real conundrum when you're trying to attain the excellence and get your league table provisions up, whilst also still providing for those with special educational needs. So whether the government will ever recognise this and actually try and fund education better, it should do, because money's not everything, but it certainly helps.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Arnold.
Yeah, if I can just have a narrow point. 6.2, Proposal 1, it reads, to develop specialist resource provision in mainstream schools for children with cognition and learning difficulties, social communication issues, including the autistic spectrum. And some of the work that I've done professionally as a key worker with traumatised children, a lot of traumatised children have behavioural issues, and therefore they can be placed in probably the wrong environment. I can mention one young man who was on the autistic spectrum. He couldn't make toast. This is a residential setting. Couldn't make toast, but he could name every pharaoh of Egypt. Right? And it's this bit that I just want to home in on, because you have autistic savants is an old-fashioned phrase, but people in the autistic spectrum have a particular skill in something, mathematics, art, history, and it's bringing them into mainstream to help support their personal development in the things that they are very good at, right? And children, as I said, with early years trauma can be extremely difficult and have challenging behaviour, but they may be equally as intelligent as anyone else in this room, and they need the educational support. So yeah, I support Bill's comment. And that's why I welcome the report and that proposal. Right, because you can't just, I know this is wrong, but you can't just stick kids in a specialist school when they've got skills and abilities and potential that has to be brought through, and that's why I welcome this.
Thank you. Paul.
Yeah, I want to welcome the report and thank the officers concerned and Simon and his team, especially in terms of our agenda for SEND, which is, you know, in the Ofsted visit that we had 18 months ago now, isn't it? Was praised for what we are trying to achieve in terms of that inclusivity. Inclusivity isn't a cheap option, Bill. That's a reality. Inclusivity is about making sure that we've got the right support and services for mainstream schools to ensure that those young people can thrive, as Arnold has said, can thrive in that environment. We have some really good examples in Telford and Wrekin of schools where that is happening right this minute. That's about head teachers having to make really difficult decisions about how they use their resources, but it's a whole picture. It's not, and I think it's not just about the young people, it's about the families as well, and how we work alongside families to ensure that those young people are seen to be getting the best possible services they can do. I welcome the report and welcome the move forwards that we've made on SEND over the past few years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour of the report? Well done. Thank you very much. That's good too. Item 5, Pride in Our High Street, supporting business. Councillor Lee Carter.
Okay, positive report. Thank you, Richard. So the report in front of you provides an update on the second phase of Pride in the High Street. Pride in the High Street per se was a programme that was launched in 2015, and in its current phasing will see more than £1.5 million invested into supporting local businesses in our borough high streets. Within the report there are 3 distinct projects that I think is worth highlighting. First and foremost is a Young High Street Challenge. That was a competition run in the middle part and latter part of last year. Wrekin College won that, and we're winners of a High Street idea and have identified premises to locate their retro shack to. That will be on Duke Street in Wellington. It will be a co-ownership with the House of Prayer, a unit owned by the House of Prayer, and that's currently being made ready to open, and it will be based on a shared ownership model. The winners of the Best Design Challenge I'm currently working on market branding for Wellington Market, which is a hugely important, significant institution with our town. Students from Burton Borough have attended a tile workshop at Jackfield Tile Museum to create an entrance feature for the wall in the market, and that's currently being manufactured by Craven Dunhill. Second programme is the empty unit incentive packages. We received over 91 expressions of interest for application forms. Some of these requests and application forms are seeking suitable premises still. Some are attending the Growth Hub business startup courses, and I should add that's the Telford Wrekin Growth Hub business startup courses, and others are researching their business ideas. 7 businesses have been supported so far with grants totalling 66,500, which include a haberdashers in Oakengates, coffee shop in Oakengates, a sports bar and grill in Iron Bridge, a PR agency in Wellington, the New Orbit Theatre in Wellington, a dessert shop in Wellington, and a hair and beauty salon in Iron Bridge. There are also another 2 applications in the pipeline which are being assessed, one for a dance academy to be located in Dorley and one for a further restaurant in Wellington. The third scheme, which has been hugely popular, has been a property facade scheme. This has taken up the most significant budget in terms of its allocation. It's not a grant, it's delivered through a contractor and managed by our BIP team. Letters were sent to landlords across all 6 borough town high streets. 62 landlords have signed up for the property facade scheme. The next stage in that will be to secure planning permissions and do some testing works, and then start that work in Wellington, Oakengates and Iron Bridge. There's one final thing within the report that I think it's worth majoring on because it's a significant piece of news, and that's expressions of interest to the government's Future High Street Fund. The government's Future High Street Fund is a £675 million fund, and it's open to our local authorities to bid with each other. With each local authority given approval to make 1 or more submission based on the size of the local authority area. Telford Wrekin has been given approval to submit 2 expressions of interest, and the report recommends that these should be based in Wellington and Oakengates. We've consulted with the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, who have stressed that each expression of interest must be based on one high street or town centre, and in principle Wellington and Oakengates meet the key eligibility criteria, and we've matched that rationale. What we have said, however, is that there is a second round of bidding for this, for which we will put forward Madeley and Dorley, and then finally there's a second high street fund that will be launched by the government later this year, which is set to allocate 55 million to support the regeneration of heritage high streets. The details and bidding process for this fund have yet to be confirmed, but the outline guidance suggests that Iron Bridge and Newport will be high streets with the closest fit to the objectives of the Heritage High Street Fund. I'd like to move the recommendations contained in the report.
Thank you, Lee. Is there a seconder for that? Yes, thanks, Shirley. Bill, Andrew?
Yes, funny enough, I do welcome this. I suppose being of a certain age, you get to enjoy traditional high streets. You remember what they were at one time, and the centres of the community that they've become. Of course, the world is changing, and I'm sure everybody here, like myself, does a lot of shopping online, and that in itself doesn't particularly help the high streets. Now, I do welcome any initiatives that do support the high street. Certainly Wellington and Oakengates, I remember them as being thriving centres in the past. So anything that helps try and support that has got to be welcomed. What I would like to see or suggest is that we do some strategic thinking around this, and not the usual thing of just trying to improve the visual appearance. I think we need some thought about retail itself, the amount of retail that we have on our high streets, and what we're doing with properties above them. Now again, going back, high streets themselves used to be quite a community with people living there, and there is an opportunity, I think, to do something quite special here with both Wellington and Oakengates and start to look for the future. But it does need some thought around that. The second bid concerning Iron Bridge and Newport, I welcome those as well. Certainly there's great success in those 2 towns, and anything we can do to make sure that that continues in the future has got to be welcomed as well. So it is a question, I think, of really innovative and strategic thinking around this to change what our high streets do, what they provide, and how they actually provide it.
Thank you, Andrew. Bill?
Yes, I welcome the report, and I echo part of what Andrew said. We've got to be more innovative. that in how we look at. I mean, when you've got a historic towns and historic layouts, you can't necessarily change the physical layout of that when they're ancient layouts. But sometimes a tweak here and a tweak there, and make them a destination for people to want to go to. If you're going to encourage people out, you might need shelter. You know, you might need more seats, more seating areas, more meeting places, sorts of that, where people will go out to do something to go shopping for, but then spend some time just sitting around, rather than necessarily doing a main shop there. But I welcome this, I really do.
Lee, do you want to come back in on that?
No, I think it's worth pointing out a couple of things. First of all, a team from the ministry came to Wellington in September 2018 actually, and talked and spent some time looking at the Young High Street Challenge. And it's no exaggeration to say they've taken that away, and that's influenced some of the government High Street Fund. Absolutely agree in terms of just investment into making things look nice. Actually, if you read the terms of the fund and the kind of things it looks to achieve the change of balance between retail and other activities in the high street. It looks to looks at accommodation above shops, what we can do there. It does look at the public realm, but only where it can improve access to infrastructure, things like bus stations, train stations, that kind of thing. And you'll note that both towns that we've identified as meeting the criteria have both got rail stations. So yeah, I think it looks to achieve all those things, and actually I think the great success of this so far has been that it hasn't focused on making things look nice. It's attracted real businesses into the high street, and I can only speak from experience in terms of Wellington, but Wellington in particular, we've seen the injection of public sector funds to help instigate some things moving. Actually, we're seeing the private sector follow in behind now and start to open up premises, different kinds of shops, tea shops, bookshops, things that perhaps were on the high street when we all think back to those heady days. The only other thing I'd like to point out is that the officers who've worked on this, Kathy and Joy are here in particular, and I know it's been a lot of graft, meeting almost every business face to face, working through their business plans, working through their aspirations to make sure that they're realistic. So thank you to both of you and the team who've supported all of this.
Thank you, Lee. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Over to item 6, Fostering Modernisation Plan. Councillor Paul Watling.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. We're seeking approval for revised fees and allowances structure for our carers, our foster carers, agreeing the scheme, which will commence on April the 1st this year. As part of our modernisation programme of the fostering service, we've taken the opportunity to review our fees as a consequence of the National Fostering Stocktake, which endorsed a tiered approach to paying fees linked to skills and experience of carers. So the local authority provides a fostering service, recruiting and supporting a range of foster carers. And over recent years, there's been a rise in the use of independent fostering agencies. It's been part of our strategy to think about our cost improvement strategy, to think about how we get more local authority foster carers, because agencies are more expensive than local authorities. Although there has been growth with our internal foster carers, the review has highlighted areas of pressure, particularly around availability of carers for our children with complex needs, and a need to be able to offer current and potential new carers a competitive offer. This report seeks to modernise and simplify fees with a clear progression route to reflect market rates. The benefits of the proposed changes will result in an increase in both the number and capacity of in-house foster care provision, a reduction in the number of children placed with independent fostering agencies, an increase in the number of children placed locally, and the financial case for change is strong, with significant budget pressure on the provision for placements. This plan will contribute to the reduction in budget pressures attributed to placements for looked after children. The review of the service is set in context of the national foster care crisis, which is well documented and widely publicised. Fees paid to independent agencies are 92% higher than those paid within the average cost of placement, being £759 compared with £396 for local authority placements. The reasons for the increase in the use of independents is set out in paragraph 4.8. The proportionate increase in the use of independent foster agencies is due to several factors, including the national increase in the number of looked after children, an increase in the complexity of the needs of children, inadequate growth of in-house foster care provision to meet the demand, and a foster carer offer which is not aligned with that of our competitors. So independent agencies are able to offer that tiered approach, and we haven't been up to now. Current fees and allowances are standard and do not recognise the skills and experiences required to support children and young people in care. We have benchmarked our current fees with local authorities, and our fees and allowances are not comparable. We need to model our offer to ensure Telford carers are recognised as rewarding the complex and valuable work they undertake. Foster carers in our town do an amazing job in terms of looking after our children, and I have to say I'm in awe of some of the stories that I hear when we come to Foster Conference, and I talk to the Foster Care Association, the chair of the Foster Care Association, regularly on a one-to-one to see the kind of work that they're doing. So I move the report and the recommendations at 2122.
Seconder? Shirley? Okay. Andrew? No, Bill?
No, I'm happy to see that we're trying to look to tiered it based on, what's going on. And I think maybe you probably have already done this. You may need to benchmark when you look at like external foster care, and if you can dig behind and find out what they're actually paying their foster carers, because as unfortunate as we live in a material world, and if people can get paid more for what they're doing through an external fostering agency like the local authority, then whether we can support them better with training and counselling and everything else better than the external ones can, but we've got to match them, otherwise we're going to find ourselves under increased more competition, if you want to put it that way. It's going to cost us more in the long run. So if an increase in fees saves us costs, I'm all for increasing them even more.
Yeah, just to say, and I think we can say that we've had external foster carers who have decided to come to Telford and Wrekin because of the support that the team give to those to those people, and that's been unheard of, I have to say, and I'm proud of what Angela Yap and the team have done to actually move that forward. This is the next step in that journey, and I think we do have to push hard. We have to keep our finger on the pulse of it and make sure that we're continuing to look at what will keep people in Telford and Wrekin. It's difficult with the pressures that are on the budget, and we all know about that. I think this is a real step forward, and I'm really proud that we have been able to achieve this at this time.
It's an investor save.
It is an investor save.
Tell Lee that one.
No. Well, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Item 7, Councillor Carr, Procurement Update.
I think I'd just like to move the recommendations, please, Richard.
Just want to move them. Is there a seconder for the procurement? Hilda? Any comments? No. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour of the report? It's quick. Item 8, Declaration of Lilleshall Hill. So, Johnny Marzace, I've got to do this myself. I'll do this myself. Here we go. Right, Fran. Yeah, the report sets out proposals for Cabinet to approve the declaration of Lilleshall Hill Local Nature Reserve following its designation in the Lilleshall Neighbourhood Plan, and with support of the Parish Council and local groups. This will be the 15th Local Nature Reserve, and it's really good news for our town. There's a lovely picture of me in the fields. This is probably one of the greenest. Yes, thanks. I was scared. Thanks. This is probably one of the greenest administrations we've had at the council, linking into our green guarantee, and it's a really good news story. And hope not in the too distant future we'll have the Cockshot coming along as well to make the 16th. So I would just like to move the recommendations in the report at items 2.1 to 2.2. You a second. Thank you, Lou. Here it comes. I thought Andrew might want to comment.
Yes, I probably would on that, funnily enough, Chairman. Yes, I've got to say that the photograph of you in Lilleshall I'll put on my mantelpiece, to be quite honest, and I suppose I'll look at it fondly after May and remember you. Of course, I'm only joking. No, I welcome this. I welcome the report. I welcome the work that's been done on the council, by the council, and Fran in particular on this. It's been a good exercise. It's been a good project, and it's been the right project. And the designation that's given to this, I support it absolutely and right the way through. And the more nature reserves we get in the borough, the better I think it is. I suppose I could make comment on the green guarantee, but I won't on this particular occasion. But it is the right thing to do, and it's the right thing to involve the community. And I've got to say that the community in Lilleshall have certainly risen to the challenge of this. We did hold a meeting for volunteers, which was extremely well attended. I'm sure the only reason wasn't that there was a bar open at the time, but it was good. There was a lot of enthusiasm. Fran certainly played her part in that. And I look forward to seeing the work getting underway. We've supplied them with some tools, some spades and forks, etc. But there's a lot of enthusiasm, and it's something that I wholeheartedly welcome.
Thank you, Andrew. Bill?
The more the merrier, because the volunteers that come out once you've got one of these designated and you can support them and help them is great. I can see that in my own work with the Dothill Local Nature Reserve. And I know there's been some sticky issues over the legal transfer of land and bits and pieces which have bogged it down a bit and have delayed some of them getting there. It's fully recognised. But once that's over and done with and sorted out, then the more of these we can have. I've got plots of land that I would like to tack on to Dothill Local Nature Reserve in Shorebirds, because I've got a piece of ancient woodland, as well as an ancient council. You've got ancient woodland with bluebells and the rest of it. So, you know, that's in the process of being looked at as well. So,
don't worry, Bill, we'll do it for you.
Thank you. Any nice, really no. So, no, I really welcome this report. Thank you.
I mean, can I just add that, you know, it does, as you said, encourage volunteers, the community get involved, lots of friends group get set up, and that links to the health and wellbeing agenda, using these green spaces for the purposes, not just for dog walking, but for other things as well. And we value the green space in Telford. It is a green town. It's one of our biggest selling points, and it's really great that we're now protecting another part of not just Telford, but our history with the Lilleshall Monument in the middle of it. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Thank you very much. So item 9, better homes for all. Some of us have got to declare an interest and leave.
Okay. I think there's enough of us left to have a decent debate still. Okay, so in the report, just read out a few words. In February last year, Cabinet approved our Better Homes for All report, which included a relaunch of a landlord accreditation scheme to educate, support and advise landlords, a rogue landlord task force team to deal with those who persistently offend, the introduction of new licensing standards for houses of multiple occupation, and the more proactive use of enforcement officers to tackle a range of associated environmental crimes and antisocial behaviour. This report provides an update on our achievements to date. It's pleasing to be able to report that we were successful in our bid to the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government and secured $388,000, enabling us to develop our new rogue landlord task force team. The team have issued 226 notices in relation to 60 properties during 2018 and have progressed 6 separate prosecutions for offences under the Housing Act, resulting in landlords and letting agents being ordered to pay more than $43,000 in fines and £11,000 being reclaimed for housing benefit. I think it's important to note that we were also the first council in the country to add a convicted landlord to the new national database of rogue landlords. A national change in the legislation for HMO licensing took effect on the 1st of October 2018. To date, 148 landlords have applied for a licence, and we've been inspecting premises and issuing licences to landlords who meet our new enhanced licensing conditions approved by Cabinet in 2018. We anticipate there are a further 200 properties that may meet the criteria for HMO licensing, and the team are working now to identify those who have not yet come forward to licence. Our team of enforcement officers have been targeting known hotspots for antisocial behaviour, including fly tipping, fly posting, littering and graffiti. Our approach is to educate first before resorting to any enforcement. However, last year 283 fixed penalty notices were issued, 4 times that of the previous year. A further 641 warning letters were sent to people suspected but where there was insufficient evidence to issue a fine. This compares to 195 warning letters in 2015. Last year, the number of reported fly tips was also 40% lower than its peak 4 years ago, and our social media campaigns are helping engage all of our residents in helping tackle antisocial behaviour in our borough. The other part of this update report, is around the work we are doing to promote and celebrate the good work done by private sector landlords. In August 2018, we relaunched our landlord accreditation scheme, and a new landlord liaison officer was appointed to improve standards in the private rented sector. There are now 93 members of our new scheme. In February of this year, we held our first Better Homes for All awards, sponsored by Wrekin Housing Trust. The aim of the ceremony was to celebrate some of the excellent tenants, landlords and letting agents in the borough, and dispel the negative image of the private rented sector sometimes reported in the media. I think it's fair to say, and this is a heartfelt thanks, Maulers, because I know the work that's gone on in terms of this issue. But I'd like to thank all of the officers involved in helping to achieve these results, and for your hard work and commitment. We'll obviously continue to closely monitor the effectiveness of this package of measures and report back in a further 12 months. I'd like to move the recommendations in the report, which is to note the update provided in this report for members' endorsement. Comments? No. Bill?
Yes, the bit I want to zero eyes in on is supporting tenants, which is on 7.1. It's good that you've got this new website for tenants to go on to, but I'm just conscious that particularly old fogies like me, who may be a private tenant, won't necessarily be that au fait sometimes with social media and internet and all the rest of it. So is it possible that everyone who is a private landlord should have their premises with a plaque or something on which has got some information that tenants, can contact us with, or even sometimes a phone number, because sometimes someone's going to struggle maybe even with a web page, and if we've got a phone number that they can use, and we can publicise to say, look, if you're having a problem, we can help. We can't do everything, but we can help. I think some of the more vulnerable people that are renting, I was even thinking of my own future son-in-law who's renting in Birmingham, not in Telford, I hasten to add. He's got a rogue landlord and a rogue letting agency, really, but to know that there is some support from a local authority that can help throw some weight, and you're not just having to try and think, I've got to go to court and try and do this, and because most people just haven't got the wherewithal or the time and the effort and the energy to do that. So as much as we can support tenants, that itself I think will build up the quality of the actual properties themselves.
Have you got anything you want to come back on?
Just a couple of things I'd say. I think you're right, but I think one of the things we've tried to do is actually have some drop-in sessions, which I think is referenced in the report, and in targeted way in particular areas where we know we've got sort of high percentage of private landlords, so people can actually come in and actually talk to an officer and get advice. And that's been really invaluable, I think, in terms of actually going to people where they are and trying to spread the word and how they can get in touch with us and how they can report things. So we do really promote that. I think the other thing we've done is done a lot of sort of hard copy materials where we've actually got a phone number on there as well. So actually we have been trying to get those out. The officers from Public Protection, when they go out into properties, they actually leave those so people know who to contact. They know about the Rogue Landlord Task Force. So we are trying to do that, but I think there is more of that we want to do over the next 12 months as well.
That'd be good. That'd be good. Thank you.
Paul?
Yeah, I welcome the report. It's really positive, I think, and again, it says to rogue landlords, there's nowhere to hide. We will be following this up. I don't get complaints from my constituents from those areas that have a high number of private lets about tenants. I get complaints about landlords who don't look after their properties properly, who leave people who are vulnerable in a position where windows are broken and they're not getting them repaired, roofs are leaking, and systems are leaking and stuff like that. So this is really positive for me that we are actually rewarding those good landlords, and there are lots of them. Let's be clear on that, and also saying there's no place to hide for those rogue landlords that want to take advantage of our vulnerable young people and older people in Telford and Wrekin.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the definition. What is the definition of a landlord? And the word private has been used a number of times, so that's the definition. But it's not just the landlords that there may be issues with. It can be the tenants. And I've been I won't mention any names or areas. I've been supporting someone with massive antisocial behaviour and police presence. And that was not a private landlord, that was an organisation. And yes, and the council was involved and supportive and so on. But for me, it's wider than just private landlords, although I do welcome the report and the initiatives that have been taken and the prosecutions which then reinforce the need to be a good landlord. But it can be wider, and I can think of neighbours affected by poor maintenance, water coming in. I had a case where water was coming in through the wall of a private house as opposed to a rented house next door. So there's got to be mechanisms and vehicles, and I think there are, to ensure that other people affected by poor landlording can be represented and supported and dealt with. And, as I said, this particular case of massive antisocial behaviour with large police presence, brought the area into disrepute, and there were private dwellings there. So I think we need to be aware of the wider implications of landlording.
Thank you. Moved, seconded. All in favour? Better get them back then. Better rewrite it. Yeah.
Thank you, Lee. Thanks, everybody. So item 10, local offer to care leavers. Councillor Paul Watling.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. The Children and Social Work Act 2017 sets out the requirement to improve support to our children in care, confirming 7 corporate principles to which local authorities must have regard. These are set out in page 1. Local authorities were required to publish their local offer for care leavers by September last year, which sets out information about services which the local authority offer that may assist care leavers, services relating to health, relationships, education, training, employment, accommodation and so forth. As is published, it's a live document and it's reviewed at Corporate Parenting Board whenever we meet and is being continually updated and improved. I'm pleased to say we are compliant in terms of the requirements and have consulted extensively with our Care Leaver Forum. The offer is promoted by our personal advisors. The offer extends the role of support from 21 to 25 years old, and a change again brought about by the 2017 Act. There are updates set out on page 9. As you'll see, this is an evolving offer. So we're requesting the Cabinet notes the progress being made against the requirements of the 2017 Act. I mean, I've been following this quite closely with Laura, who's been leading on it, and it's a good piece of work that's happened with our care leavers. I'm really proud that they have been involved in that process, and the Care Leavers Forum have been involved in that process. We now have a care leaver on Corporate Parenting Board, which I'm really proud about as well, and we'll be working alongside that person when they come to board to ensure that they know exactly what their role is within the board and how they can influence what we do within corporate parenting. It is just a recommendation to note the progress. I move it. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Thank you. Any comments?
No.
No, I welcome the report. It's an important thing we do now. We can't just, once people reach the age of 16 or 18, just think, right, that's it. You know, people need support and to be moved on in life. I'm glad that the government recognise this in terms of, you know, the new acts and the new things coming in to make it a statutory responsibility. Wouldn't it be nice though if the money came with it?
Yes, indeed.
You know, it's all right having these lists, additional lists of things we're responsible for, which as a proactive council we're doing quite well, and we'll look to try and do. But it'd be nice to have the funds to actually do it properly, wouldn't it?
Yes, it's very true. Lots of things being passed to us.
I thoroughly welcome the fact that it's recognised that care leavers may well need additional support. So I turn it on its head. The fact that some of these young people are in care is due to what has happened to them, early years trauma, etc., etc. So they do need, and as a former care leaver myself, I recognise that when you leave school and so on, leave home, you need additional support, as I got. And then you need support in the community, social skills. My social skills were lacking, believe it or not. And
Find that quite hard to believe.
I just had to leave it, didn't I? And educationally, yes. So there's those additional supports that care leavers may well need, and accommodation and job skills and all the rest of it. So that's why I welcome this, because it recognises that care leavers may well need additional support because of the reason they were in care.
Thank you, Arnold. Do you want to come back?
Yeah, just to say, our children need the support that we would give to any family would give to their children, and I'm proud to say that we've moved that forward. You know, I'm pleased it's gone to 25 from 21. That's really positive, because and some of our young people are getting that extended foster care approach, which, Arnold, I know has been something that you've been really pushing for. So, I mean, it is really good to see, and the offer is clear and concise, I think, and that's really positive. So I know a lot of hard work has gone into it. I'm proud of some of the things, some of the extras that we've been able to put in this year, which weren't there before. So it's really positive. It's what any family would do for their children. So.
Thanks very much. Very good report. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Thank you very much. So it's item 11, Development of Regional Permanency Arrangement. Councillor Paul Watling again.
Yeah, sorry about this, folks, but thank you, Deputy Leader. We're seeking approval to set out in the recommendations on page 1, 2.1 to 2.3. The paper also reflects the intention of returning to Cabinet by the 31st of December this year with the full business case that will include the financial formula. This will be equitable and will ensure local authorities are not funding services or provision for looked after children for whom they are not responsible for. The 4 local authorities are clear that any future partnership cannot lead to increased financial costs or pressures. The government has put forward the need for regional approaches to fostering for permanence. We have spent a long time, 8 years I've been involved in this role, and for the whole of that 8 years we've been looking at trying to find something that would be both cost effective and quality effective for our young people. We have a very high standard in terms of permanence, in terms of adoption, which is continuously noted by Ofsted in terms of the work that we do around adoption. I felt it was really important that wouldn't change with any regional approach that we took. But as we've always said, we will always look for partnerships within the region that benefit the children and young people in Telford and Wrekin, and I believe that what we've got here actually benefits the children and young people. The paper reflects so the partnership came together in response to the requirements of the Regional Adoption Agency, a statutory requirement set out in the Adoption Act 2016. This must be in place by April 2020. The DFE's expectation is that larger delivery model should be able to pool resources, share best practice, to better target the recruitment of prospective adopters, and to speed up the matching and placement of children for adoption. The current arrangements as joint adoption service has worked well for a number of years, which places us in a strong position. The partnership, in seeking to create an arrangement which goes beyond adoption, will also be including children who require permanence through fostering, special guardianship and connected persons, with the mission to lead the local, regional and national agenda in respect to achieving permanence for all looked after children who require it. The legal definition of permanence is set out in 2.2. The partnership is seeking to achieve improved outcomes for all looked after children who require permanence by operating on a regional footprint, maximising the resources, capacity and delivering flexibility whilst maintaining the independence of each authority. The partnership is the first in the country, and it's received a transition grant from the DFE, which is great news. Staff will continue to be employed and based within each local authority. Statutory responsibilities relating to our children in care will continue to sit with the local authorities, i.e. corporate parenting, as we discussed earlier, agency decision-making functions and care planning activities. There is a sequence plan in place to achieve to go live of phase 1 in 2018 to 2020, phase 2 and 3, 2019, 2020, phase 2 and 3. There will be significant opportunities around efficiency, collaboration and recruitment of placements. So it's a good move forward. We've got Joe here from the regional team who is working with all 4 local authorities. I think it's been a tough journey for us. We've looked at lots of different options over the years. We looked at a West Mercia option, we looked at a Black Country option, and this is the one that we've come to. It's a partnership with Staffordshire, Stoke-on-Trent, Shropshire and Telford and Wrekin. And as we have always said, we will always work in partnership with any partners who want to work with us and give us improved outcomes for our children and young people. Thank you. I move the recommendations 2.1 to 2.3.
As was second for those, Shirley. Andrew, comment?
Yes, I would like to comment on this one if I can. I mean, instinctively, the thought of any regional arrangements fill me full of a certain amount of dread, but certainly not in this case. I think it's absolutely the way forward. And I do look forward to seeing the full business case on this and welcome the funding bill from the government to actually pump prime this and put it in place. I suppose with regional working, there's always the chance that you'll lose your own identity, your own individuality and ways of working. But I think if it is done on this basis and we can make this work, and I'm sure we can. I didn't know your enthusiasm for this as well. It completely convinced me that this is the way forward, and I think that this will give better outcomes for children that find themselves in these particular circumstances. So I certainly welcome the report and look forward to seeing how this progresses.
So I look forward to this. It looks a good idea. It's worked with the fostering, so let's see if we can work on a wider basis.
Brilliant.
Well,
As I said, more corporate parents, so
Absolutely.
the best outcomes for our children is what we're trying to achieve. Paul.
Yeah, and just to answer Andrew's question, I think we are very clear that our identity as a adoption agency at the moment will not change. It's still it's one of the things that I've been very clear on, Andrew. You know that we can't afford to have any slip in the quality of the service we give to both adopters and to our children. In terms of technically how that's going to work, it's Joe. Maybe you could just say how the other agencies are talking about that as well.
Yeah. So I'm really pleased to be here this evening to obviously see the Cabinet report be discussed by Cabinet colleagues. What I would say is each of the local authorities have entered this partnership with a very clear stance that identity is of real importance. We also know from our fostering and adopter recruitment, residents are more likely to adopt and foster with a local authority than they are an independent agency, because they share the values that it's about improving the lives of our children and not about profit, and that's some of the feedback that we get. In terms of the next stage around ensuring that identity is maintained, we are quite clear that subtle things are really important about the Telford and Wrekin logo, for example, alongside the other partner logos. Any brand, any recruitment activity will be delivered as 4 local authorities together, using each of the logos, using each of the individual branding to support that. And we're quite clear that any media activity, any activity that's undertaken as routine recruitment will come from local grassroots local authorities. So whilst it's very different to the rest of the country, we do believe that this gives us a positive bit of recruiting through our local residents who believe in fostering and adopting with their local authority, and that we're able to say that you're able to access that specialist support and intervention that you may need, that we can only deliver by working closer with our partners. We're actually suggesting the best of both worlds in terms of that identity and that moving forward.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour of the report? Thank you very much, Karen. So we'll move on to item 12. This is a strong lead decision for Cabinet to be noted. In January 2018, proposals approved by Cabinet to acquire site of the former New College in Wellington. It has taken some time to fully understand Sport England's requirements and to undertake invasive survey work necessary to fully cost the scheme. Our conclusion, considering the best solutions and best value, is a campus-style development which includes the relocation of Horton Special School alongside other appropriate uses. It is therefore proposed that the Council continue with seeking to acquire the site on the basis of bringing forward a master plan for regenerating the site. A further report will be brought back to Cabinet setting out proposals if the Council is successful in acquiring the site and any requirement for further investment. Cabinet is asked to note the strong lead decision taken to allow negotiations to continue set out in recommendations 1 to 5 of the report. I'll move the recommendations. Is there a second? Yes.
I've got some initial questions around this about the Sport England issue and why that wasn't picked up. Now, as far as I'm aware, usually Sport England are talking about providing replacement pitches or something along those lines, and why we hadn't picked up the issues around the fabric of the buildings not being sufficient. Now, coming back to the first report here, back in 2018 in January, there was a clear and demonstrable need to do this for Horton School, and it's something that I remember welcoming at the time. It was the right thing to do. It was providing for a need, and it was going to help with future provision for special educational needs, plus mental health issues and everything else. And I've got to say, I'm really disappointed to see us shying away from that. It looks initially like there's an issue around some of the costs of the covenant of 300k, I think it was, with Sport England. But surely, you know, for the sake of something like this and keeping this scheme on board, we could actually start to accommodate some of those issues. Now, I'm not party to the state of the buildings or how much it's going to cost to do that, but I really would like to know what that is with this particular project. But I would strongly urge, if I can, that we continue with this and we try and make the things stack up and work for the sake of Horton School as much as anything else.
Well, I think we will be working to make it stack up. It is currently a confidential report when it comes forward in the next Cabinet report. So, do you want to add anything, Paul?
Yeah, just because Horton's in my ward, I agree with you, Andrew, and I think we are very clearly going to be working alongside the school to ensure that the needs of that school are met, whatever happens. It's been part of the SEND report, which you've already spoken about. You know, there's due diligence that we have to be part of, and you know that, Andrew. It's a difficult one. It's not as easy as that. Some of the complex issues, legal issues that are there, will
That's
always
what I'm
be
saying.
there.
I've not been made aware of those. And,
yeah.
you know, I really would like to know what the issues
Well,
are.
you will be aware of it when the confidential report comes forward, because that's part of that process. What I would say to you, as lead member for children and young people, it's clear from what's been said already on the SEND agenda that the improvements to Horton School are key to our SEND agenda, and we will continue to find an answer to those issues. Okay.
No, I just look forward to the fact that when that site can be properly redeveloped, really.
Yeah, I think it's just worth reiterating. It's still hugely positive. I think it's still hugely potentially positive for Horton School. It's got wider impact as well, potentially with a campus that can go on there. As you've seen, you know, I'm going to talk with a bit of bias about this, about the ward. It's in the top 10% deprived in the country. That probably hasn't changed much, Andrew, since the time that you were ward councillor there. It's had its significant challenges. I think it's got a huge potential to address some of those. But what this report is basically revealing is that we've done due diligence, which is expected of us. You know, we stand at full council, we get hammered publicly about being irresponsible when we're not. We're doing due diligence here, and this is what this is revealing. What it's also saying, I think it's worthwhile reminding everyone on this point, is that effectively this report is giving us permission to go in and bid for the site. Not only is that beneficial to the school, also the local area and local residents in terms of the other things it can unlock, but it's also important in terms of protecting that site from being sold to a developer who might just whack a load of houses on there, which I'm sure we would all agree we don't want. So I think it's still welcome, but I think it's worth keeping in mind exactly what this report is asking us to do.
Thank you very much, thanks, Steve. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour of the recommendations, thank you very much. I will now close the last Cabinet meeting before the election, and thank you that I didn't have to use my gavel.
It's more like it.